morning, students. In the last session, we have understood the structure of the heart. Now, let us understand how the heart pumps the blood out, or the mechanism of the pumping of the heart. We already have learned that heart has 4 chambers, top 2 atria, bottom 2 ventricles. In these chambers, the left atrium receives the O2 rich blood from the left atrium receives the O2 rich blood from lungs through pulmonary veins. The left atrium receives the O2 rich, oxygen rich blood from lungs through pulmonary veins. Simultaneously, means at the same time, the right atrium receives carbon dioxide rich blood from all body parts through vena cava. There are 2 vena cava, upper vena cava or superior vena cava and lower vena cava or inferior vena cava. So, the right atrium receives carbon dioxide rich blood through vena cava from all body parts. When blood is being received by the atria are in relaxed condition. The walls of the atria are in relaxed condition, and both the atria receives the blood simultaneously. That is, the left atrium receives the oxygen rich blood and the right atrium receives the carbon dioxide rich blood. Both are receiving at the same time. While the atria are receiving the blood, they are in which condition? They are in relaxed condition. Now, the atria contract. Atria contract and the blood is pushed down into ventricles. The atria contract and the blood is pushed down into ventricles. When atria are receiving the blood, how were the atria? They were in relaxed condition. Then, when ventricles are receiving the blood, how should they be? They must be also in relaxed condition. So, when atria are contracting, the ventricles are in relaxed condition and they receive the blood which is pushed down from atria. So, the right ventricle receives the carbon dioxide rich blood from the right atrium and the left ventricle receives the oxygen rich blood from the left atrium. After receiving the blood, the ventricles also contract. The walls of the ventricles also contract. But this contraction is with more pressure than of the contraction of atria. Why? Because atria has to push down the blood only into their next chamber. So, they don't need to exert much pressure. So, only the walls of the atria are thin and they exert less pressure. But when the ventricles are getting contracted, the walls of the ventricles exert sufficient amount of pressure because the walls of the ventricles are thick enough and the need to contract is very high. Why? Because if they are contracting sufficiently, then only the blood will be pumped out so that the blood reaches to all parts of the body as well as to the lungs. So from the right atrium, the right ventricle has received carbon dioxide rich blood. So from the right ventricle, the carbon dioxide rich blood is pumped out. At the same time, from the left ventricle, the oxygen rich blood is pumped out. Pumped out into what? Pumped out into larger blood vessels that are connected to the ventricles. The right ventricle is connected to a larger blood vessel called pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery. And the left ventricle is connected to a larger blood vessel called aorta. Aorta. So, from the right ventricle, the carbon dioxide rich blood is pumped out into pulmonary artery. At the same time, from the left ventricle, the oxygen rich blood is pumped out into aorta. Right? Now, after this pumping is out, at the same time, both the atria and ventricles are in relaxed condition. Okay, right? This is how the mechanism of pumping in heart is taking place. Right? Here we need to discuss about certain valves which are not given in the textbook. Okay, what are they? Mitral valve, tricuspid valve, and semilunar valves. Mitral valve, tricuspid valve, and semilunar valves. Mitral valves, tricuspid valve, and semilunar valves. While discussing about the structure of heart, we have learned that in order to prevent the mixing of oxygen rich blood from CO2 rich blood, separating valves are present between atria and also between ventricles. But in between the corresponding atrium and its corresponding ventricle, means in between left atrium and left ventricle, right atrium and right ventricle, also valves are present. Their valves are present. But unlike the valves, interatrial valve and interventricular valve, here the atrioventricular valves, they are having valves. They are having valves. The mitral valve is present. The mitral valve is present in the left atrioventricular septum, which is also called dicuspid valve. And there is a tricuspid valve which is present in the right atrioventricular septum. So, as the blood moves down from atria into the ventricle, immediately these dicuspid and tricuspid valves, or mitral valve and tricuspid valves, they get closed so that the blood does not flow back. Next, semilunar valves. These valves are present, these are like in crescent shape or semilunar shape. They are present at the entrance of the larger blood vessels which are connected to left and right ventricles. The left ventricle is connected to which large size blood vessel? Aorta. And the right ventricle is connected to which large size blood vessel? Pulmonary artery. So, at the entry of aorta and pulmonary artery, these semilunar valves are present. Once the blood is pumped out into these large blood vessels, these semilunar valves also get closed. These semilunar valves also get closed. So, the closure of mitral and tricuspid valves gives a sound which we generally feel like lub. And the closure of semilunar valves gives a sound, that is dub. So we all say that heart is sounding lub dub, lub dub. What is this lub dub? Lub is the closure of mitral valve and tricuspid valve. Mitral valve is present in the left atrioventricular septum. After the blood is moving down from left atrium into left ventricle, the mitral valve gets closed. Simultaneously, blood has flown down from right atrium into right ventricle. Then the tricuspid valves get closed. Both mitral valve or dicuspid valve and tricuspid valves get closed at the same time. They get closed at the same time, which gives a sound lung. Why these valves are getting closed? Blood should not flow back. If the valves are open, blood may flow back. So valves are closed. In the same way, as the blood flows out from ventricles into aorta and pulmonary artery, the semilunar valves get closed. This will give a sound dub. So lub dub. Right. So totally, the valves ensure that the blood does not flow back and blood flows only in forward direction. Now coming to circulation types. Double circulation. Okay. Right. Before going to double circulation, we have to understand how many types of circulations are there in the chordates. In the phylum Chordata, subphylum Vertebrata is there. In the subphylum Vertebrata, there are 5 classes: fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammalia. Fishes are having only 2-chambered heart. Blood flows only once through the heart during each cycle of circulation. So this circulation is called single circulation. Reptiles and amphibians have got 3-chambered heart. Blood flows only once completely, and as a second part it flows incompletely through the heart. So it is called incomplete double circulation. Both single circulation and incomplete double circulation cannot ensure the efficient supply of oxygen. So only in those organisms the less amount of oxygen is supplied to all body cells, with which they can generate energy that can be utilized only for their metabolic needs, but they cannot utilize the energy for maintaining constant body temperature. Whereas in birds and mammals, 4-chambered heart is there, with which blood flows twice during each cycle. So only this type of circulation is called double circulation. Double circulation ensures prevention of the mixing of O2 rich blood with CO2 rich blood, which in turn ensures efficient supply of oxygen. Efficient supply of oxygen ensures generation of sufficient amount of energy, which can be utilized both for maintaining constant body temperature as well as utilizing it for metabolic demands. Thus, the double circulation ensures the enough amount of energy to be produced, which can be utilized for maintaining constant body temperature as well as for metabolic needs. And coming to blood pressure. How the blood pressure is monitored? Blood pressure can be measured by using an instrument called sphygmomanometer. Sphygmomanometer. So the normal blood pressure is 120 by 80. What is this 120 by 80? 120 refers to the systolic blood pressure and 80 refers to the diastolic blood pressure. What is this systolic and what is this diastolic? When the ventricles are relaxed while they are receiving the blood from atria, the pressure of the ventricular walls is known as diastolic pressure. When the ventricles are relaxed while they are receiving the blood from the atria, the pressure of the ventricular walls is known as diastolic pressure, which should be normally 80 mmHg. Right. As the ventricles are getting contracted in order to pump out the blood, the walls of the ventricles have got a particular amount of pressure. That is what called systolic pressure. The amount of pressure during the ventricular contraction, the amount of pressure by the ventricular walls during the ventricular contraction is known as systolic pressure. It should be 120 mmHg. High blood pressure causes hypertension. How this high blood pressure is caused? If some amount of extra cholesterol is deposited in the blood capillaries, which exerts more resistance to the flow in the blood capillaries, which in turn results in the more amount of blood pressure. So this will cause internal bleeding also. So high blood pressure is dangerous, which may cause internal bleeding or heart attack also, regarding which in class 11th we will learn little more in detail. Right. Now coming to blood vessels. How many types of blood vessels are there? There are two types of blood vessels, arteries and veins. Arteries carry the blood away from the heart. Simply to speak, arteries carry the blood that is pumped out from the heart. The pumped out blood is at its high pressure, so in order to bear that pressure, the walls of the arteries are thick enough. And as the blood is at its full pressure, blood generally does not flow back in the arteries. So arteries do not contain any valves in them. Coming to veins, veins carry the blood from all the body parts after the oxygen is supplied and CO2 is given back to the blood. And the blood that is flowing in the veins, generally it is not its high pressure. Pressure is already lost. So blood may tend to flow back. To ensure the flow of blood only in one direction, veins contain valves in them. As the blood is not at its high pressure, the walls of the veins are not thick enough like the walls of the arteries. Right. So if the flow of the blood is observed, okay, from the heart, arteries are bringing the pumped out blood, which forms smaller vessels which are called arterioles. In the tissues near to each and every cell, still 5 blood vessels which are having only one cell thickness, so as the diffusion of gases can take place between the cell and the blood vessel, that is capillaries. So at the capillaries, at the organ or tissue or cell level, capillaries are formed. From the organs, the CO2 is given back to the blood. The CO2 rich blood is collected again by capillaries. These capillaries form venules. Venules means small fine sized veins, and these will form veins, and later they join, and finally through vena cava they will give the blood back to the heart. Okay. Now this is the total pumping organ and its function. Coming to system to repair. Inside the blood, along with the red blood cells and white blood cells, there are another type of cells called platelets. These platelets are meant for the maintenance. Okay, during some injury, there may be some leak that may be occurring in the blood vessels. This leak in the blood vessels may cause the loss of the blood and loss of the pressure. Loss of the blood and the loss of the pressure in turn cause reduction in the supply of the oxygen, or reduction in the efficiency of the pumping organ, pumping system. So which will cause low energy levels, and the persons may be even getting giddiness. Okay, right? So if this leak is present all the time without getting plugged, then it will cause permanent loss. So only platelets, they plug the leaks, they plug these leaks by helping to clot the blood. Platelets actually plugging the leaks by helping to clot the blood at the site of the injuries. This is how platelets are functioning as a system to repair. Now coming to another type of fluid, like blood, there is another type of fluid which is called lymph. It is also called interstitial fluid or tissue fluid. Why it is called tissue fluid? Because I already told, here capillaries are the fine sized blood vessels which are having one cell thickness, and through which in between cells and the capillaries the gases exchange taking place, right? So these capillaries will be having fine pores on their walls. Some amount of fluid is leaking out through the pores of the capillaries into the intercellular spaces of the tissues. So the leaked out fluid through the pores in the walls of the capillaries into the intercellular spaces is called lymph or tissue fluid. This lymph contains plasma, proteins and blood cells. But do they contain the same quantity which is present in the blood? No, they contain less. And this lymph generally it appears colorless and it contains less protein. This lymph is collected not by the same capillaries from which it has been leaked out, but by some other capillaries which are known as lymphatic capillaries. These lymphatic capillaries, like how these capillaries are forming veins, these lymphatic capillaries they form lymph vessels, and these lymph vessels open and drain their contents into larger veins, so that finally it will be moving back to the actual transportation system. Functions of this lymph. This lymph carries digested and absorbed fat from intestine. Digested and absorbed fat from intestine. And it drains the excess fluid from intercellular spaces back into the blood. So it carries the digested and absorbed fat from intestine, and it drains the excess fluid. It drains the excess fluid from intercellular spaces or extracellular spaces back into the blood. Okay, thank you.